What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. In this video, we're diving into Cyber format, actually playing some games and seeing how it feels. Now, whenever I dive into a new format, what I always like to do is I like to look at the last event that took place and take the topping list and sort of take it for a spin. And that's what I've done here. I've got Splevin's Stein-Monarch build that they took to success at the last YRS for this format, and I'm testing it out. Now, this isn't necessarily the exact direction that I'd go in building a Stein-Monarch list. For instance, I might have more copies of Last Will to bring out the Stein, but I still think this is a very, very good deck to try out. And I do like the fact that this deck doesn't necessarily need Stein to win the game, where you can just win through just playing your Monarch strategy. And I think that's the sign of a good deck if it can fall on that backup if it needs to. Now, basically, the general idea of this deck is just, bring out big monarchs, getting value off them. If you bring out something like Zaborg, it pops opponent's monster, then you get them for 2,400. And there are many ways to bring these out with floaters like Gravekeeper's Spy or Mystic Tomato, or things like Spirit Reaper, and Cyber Dragon also helps just accelerate the game plan, get a monster on board to tribute off for a Monarch or a Jinzo or something like that. And you can pretty easily control the game. And also you can use things like Cold Wave to shut down your opponent's spells and traps to insulate your big plays, because a lot of your plays don't really involve spells and traps. They just involve bringing out monsters and attacking in. Also, Cold Wave really helps if you want to go for a Stein play. Now, a play that you can do in this format is you can activate Last Will, tribute a monster for a Monarch like Cyborg, bring out a Cyber-Stein from deck, pay 5,000, bring out a Cyber Twin Dragon, and that 2,800 times 2 off the Cyber Twin, plus the 2,400 from Cyborg is exact lethal. So there are a variety of different sort of OTKs you can do with Cyber-Stein, and so that's why this deck is playing a Cyber-Stein in the deck as well as a Last Will here. Again, I might play more of this just to lean into the Stein angle, because I do think that's one of the most powerful interactions in this format. But again, it's nice that the deck doesn't necessarily rely on that exclusively. And playing too many Steins or too many Wills can be a bit of a brick. But for the other cards in the list, I think that they're very good. We got Abyss Soldier here to pair with Sinister Serpent and try Infecting Viruses to bounce things back and get aggressive that way. We've got a BLS here because we are playing Lights and Darks. Cyber Dragon is a light, which is one of the other benefits of Cyber Dragon. It's a powerful light monster where, in the past, you haven't really had too many of those. So that's a light. Zaborg's a light. We're playing Jinzo. We're playing Spies. We're playing Tomatoes. So a lot of lights and darks for this thing. We're playing Breaker to clear away back row. We're playing 2 Cyber Dragon. Honestly, in the future, if I was to take a spin at this deck, I'd probably bump it up to 3. There is a third in the side in case you're going second. But this card's just so powerful. Even if you brick on them in your opening hand, you've got really good follow-up for the next turn. So I don't really mind having 3 of this in the deck as opposed to 2. The Cyber-Stein, as I mentioned, bring it off Will. We've got DD War Lady here to banish our opponent's stuff. We got an Exiled Force to clear away this stuff, also trigger Last Will. We've got triple Gravekeeper Spy to get a body on board for our Monarch. Spy's a bit worse in this form because Cyber Dragon can beat over it. But the fact that you're getting out an additional body, even if one of your Spies dies, means that you will have a tribute fodder for a Monarch. So I like the inclusion here, even though Spy's gotten a bit worse in this format. We got a Jinzo here as well. This is another very powerful Monarch-type monster. And if you're going for this, this can also insulate your Cyber-Stein play. We got a Magician of Faith to get back our powerful spells. We've got 2 Mystic Tomatoes because they float into other things. We've got a Sangan here. This is a great float off of Mystic Tomato. You tribute it off for a Monarch, get a search. And it's just in general, searching out a powerful card from your deck, potentially even a Cyber-Stein, is very strong. We got Sinister Serpent as well to pair with the Abyss Soldier and just give us continued value. We got a Spirit Reaper here to potentially just wall up and give us a monster tribute for a Monarch, or just get in for a hand rip. We got to try Infecting Virus to clear away our opponent's stuff. And we got triple Zaborg, as I mentioned. For these spells, we got Book of Moon to flip down our opponent's stuff. It can pair with the Nobleman of Crossout here, as well as just getting over big monsters. For instance, Cyber Dragon's got 69 defense. If you flip it down, you can get over it with something like an Abyss Soldier, which can be pretty nice. We got a Brain Control to take control of our opponent's stuff and tribute off for our Monarchs. We got double Cold Wave here to shut down our opponent's spells and traps. We've got a Delinquent Duo, a Graceful Charity, and Pot of Greed, the classic Trinity. Again, this format does share GOAT formats limitless, so that means that these cards are all legal. And they are just extremely powerful. We got a Heavy Storm here, a Last Will, a Knock. This can be really good, if you're going second. You bring in a Cyber Dragon, you knock your opponent's set, and then bring in another monster as well. But honestly, I'm not sure if I'd include this in the main if I was building the deck, because it can be a bit bricky at certain junctures, but when it does go off, it goes really well. We got a Pot of Greed, as I mentioned. We got the Premature Bear to bring back our stuff and then potentially go for, a Monarch play or something else. We've got a Snatch Seal to take control of our opponent's stuff, go for a Monarch play. We've got Call the Han to bring back our stuff, go for a Monarch play. A lot of these cards can double as just very powerful cards and going for Monarch plays. So that's very nice. We got a Mirror Force here to deal with our opponent's aggressive pressure. We've got a Ring of Destruction to pop their stuff. We've got a Torrential Tribute to act as a board wipe, and then we got double Dust Shoot. I do think the Dust Shoot is really, really good in this format. I mean, it's really, really good in GOAT format, but the fact that you can use Dust Shoot to sort of take away your opponent's OTK setup is really, really strong here. So I really do like Dust Shoot in the main. 2, 1, 3. I think that there should be some number of Dust Shoots in the main deck, even though, some people might want to just prefer keeping them on the side. Anyway, speaking of the side, we got the third Dust Shoot there for when we know we're going first. We got the third Cyber-Dragon for when we know we're going second. And the other cards here are sort of a hodgepodge of just general answers. We got double Wang Hu to deal with GOAT control. We got Lightning Vortex to deal with GOAT control as well. We got double Karibo for OTK strategies. We've got Mobius the Frost Monarch to deal with more back row focused decks. We got a Book of Moon in case we want to lean more into trap negation on things like Jinzo, or just as a general flex spot here. You can also pair with our Nobleman of Crusade, which we might want to bring in going second. So if we bring in this, we could also bring in the book. We've got Lightning Vortex to clear away our opponent's stuff. We've got an MST for more back row focused decks. And we've got triple Sacrifice Armor for more aggressive decks. The fusion deck is very important here. It is an unlimited fusion deck because this is just like in GOAT, at a time when you could play any number of cards in the fusion deck. So realistically, if you do need a card that's not in this fusion deck, you can sort of proxy it in. But for now, we got Cyber End Dragon, we got Cyber Twin Dragon. These are your main OTK pushes off of Stein, just very, very strong. Cyber End can pierce, and Cyber Twin can deal 5,600 on an open board. We've got the Dark Vault of the Terrible to negate spells, but also to deal with monster effects. We've got Dark Blade the Dragon Knight to banish things for our opponent's grave. We've got Darkfire Dragon and Dragon as suggested weird level edge cases here. We've got Fiend Skull Dragon to negate flip effects and also negate traps that target. We've got a Gatling Dragon to clear the way for our stuff. We've got King Dragoon, which prevents targeting on it. We don't really have any dragons to pair with it, but that preventing targeting from affecting this card is still very strong. We've got a Master of Oz, 4,200 beat stick. We've got Ojama King to lock our opponent's zones. We've got a Reaper on the Nightmare to get in for direct damage, as well as, ripping cards out of our opponent's hand. We've got a Reeve Senshi to negate normal traps, as well as spells that target this. We got a Last Warrior to just shut down summons, and we've got a Thousand Eyed Strike to act as a bit of cleanup. Now, I think this deck is really, really sick. It isn't the only way you can build Stein in this format. I will be showing off some other ways to do that on future videos on the channel, but I do think this is a really, really good way to start. And I honestly really like Stein-Monarch. I think that it might be the best way to play Stein in this format. Now, I haven't really tinkered with the Steingate stuff, and I'm coming at this from someone who's played a lot of Reaper, where Stein-Monarch is really, really good. So maybe I'm just biased, but I will be exploring Steingate in the future. That being said, I think if you want a great starting deck for this format, this is a really, really good one. Okay, we got a lot of games in this video, so strap in and get excited. These games should go relatively quickly overall, I think, because, these are very, very fast games in a fast-paced format. But sometimes they can be a bit grindy, as this first one shows. So we start out with a pretty good opening hand, but, we don't really have a way to capitalize off this Cold Wave anytime soon. So I'm actually going to do a bit of an interesting play. I'm just going to go for Cold Wave right away, set the Graveyard Spy, and pass back to our opponent. This could very well bite us in the butt, but I like this play because it prevents them from using like Knock on the Spy and getting in for a ton of damage. And also, we don't really have any spells or traps that will conflict with Cold Wave, so I'm fine just firing it here rather than later when we might draw a potential power spell like Graceful Charity or something that we'd want to use instead. So I'm just going to go for the Cold Wave there. And they're going to bring out the Cyber Dragon that does deal with our Gravekeeper's Spy. They also have an Abyss Soldier here, which might deal with the other one that we bring out. But honestly, if they bounce one Gravekeeper's Spy, I'm fine with that, because then we can reset it. And if they had been planning on bouncing, they probably would have bounced the set Spy in main one. So that tells me that they don't really have a good water to pitch off the Abyss Soldier yet. And we draw another Cold Wave. This is a bit interesting. We think about this quite a bit. We just go for the Cold Wave when we set the DD Warrior Lady here. Now, if they've got Abyss Soldier, they can bounce one of these cards. I feel like they'd probably bounce the Warrior Lady, which is a bit unfortunate, but nothing we can really do about that. I don't necessarily want to bring out Warrior Lady and just crash into Abyss Soldier, because, again, they don't really have waters to pitch right now. And as long as they don't draw, like, Serpent, then I think we're fine with doing that. If they do clear our entire board, we do have Cyber Dragon to deal with the Abyss Soldier as well, so I'm fine with that. And next turn, what I'm figuring is that they've kind of got two options here. Either they attack into Warrior Lady with the Abyss Soldier, or they attack in with Cyber Dragon. Either way, I'm fine making that trade, because I'll have an empty board on the next turn. I can bring out Cyber Dragon my own. I can potentially crash into their Cyber Dragon, and I feel fine about that. I don't think they had Zaborg last turn, or else they would have summoned that over the Cyber Dragon, popped our set. But if they do have Zaborg this turn, then that can be pretty bad, because they could tribute over the Abyss Soldier or potentially the Cyber Dragon, pop the Warrior Lady and get in for damage, which is a bit annoying. But, you know, it is what it is. And what I could do next turn is I could bring out Cyber Dragon, crash their Cyber Dragon if that's still on field, hit over the Abyss Soldier if that's still on field, and then set Magician of Faith. And that's not terrible, although I don't really have the most powerful spells in Grave. But anyways, we're passing back to them, and luckily none of those disaster scenarios actually happen. And in fact, we actually get a really good scenario happening. They attack over our Warrior Lady with the Cyber Dragon, we'll banish both, and we are perfectly fine with this. We also draw Zaborg, so we're just going to get aggressive, summon out Zaborg, pop that Abyss Soldier, get in for 24. We could have also potentially set the Magician of Faith, but I don't want them to start, like, you know, getting their Abyss Soldier online. And so I just rather go for the Zaborg now. They're going to set 2, summon out a Cyber Dragon here, pass back to us. We draw a Book of Moon, which is pretty decent. We're just going to attack into their Cyber Dragon there. They do have the Raigeki break for that. I mean, I figured that they had something to stop this board here, but we can just set this Magician of Faith, set a Book of Moon, and pass back to them. We don't really have the best spells in Grave, but, like, worst case scenario, we can, like, book down their Cyber Dragon, flip up Magician of Faith, get back that spell, and hopefully we'll have a Monarch next turn. But I also don't think that getting Cold Wave here is necessarily the worst thing in the world. They are going to summon out Abyss Soldier and pitch a Tadpole. Tadpole, very interesting card in this format, getting you some more waters to hand. So it seems like they're on a bit of a, you know, Tadpole-oriented deck, playing the Abyss Soldiers, playing the Tadpoles to get waters to hand. So very cool stuff. They're going to bounce back this Magician of Faith, which means we won't get that effect. And we could potentially book down one of these monsters. Like, booking down the Cyber Dragon isn't bad, so that way we can special summon our Cyber Dragon, hit over it next turn. But I feel like I can save the book. We are dropping below Stein range, which is unfortunate, but we don't have the tools to really set up for Stein right now. So I'm fine doing this and just trying to outgrind them. We draw a Tribe Infected Virus, which is pretty good, especially when we have a Serpent in hand. Unfortunately, if we summon Tribe, try and pop the Abyss Soldier, then it'll pop itself, because they're both Aquas. So we can't necessarily go for that. What we do instead is we just bring out this Cyber Dragon here. We attack over the Abyss Soldier. And then main 2, we're just going to set this Magician of Faith, pass back to them. And they are going to just attack into our Magician of Faith. We get back this Cold Wave, which can insulate our plays a little bit. We're still in a bit of an awkward situation, because we don't want to go for Tribe here, pitching to pop both machines on field. So that's a bit awkward. We could use Book to set down the Cyber Dragon, and then go for Cold Wave in main 1. But we draw into Zaborg, which gives us a little bit of a different option. Instead of going for the Book and standby, we're just going to go for the Cold Wave in main 1, tribute over the Cyber Dragon there, and pop their Cyber Dragon, then get in for 24. So this way, we sort of save our Cold Wave, or not our Cold Wave, our Book of Moon for later. And I think it's better to use this as a protective measure, especially when we can just hit in here instead. Now, we get a little bit punished for this play if they set a monster of their own, which, you know, we could have Zaborged potentially. But I think it's ultimately fine here. And they're just going to set 1, pass back to us. And they actually can't set because of Cold Wave, so but luckily we do catch that at the time. We just attack in for 24. We could have gone aggressive here, summoning out like a spy, especially because we used up 2 other spies. But I don't necessarily want to play into something like TT or something. So it looks like they've got the Call of the Haunted here. They're going to bring back the Tadpole there. We're just going to attack over that, deal 24, and they get 2 Tadpoles from deck. So it seems like they're doing this to not brick. Everything that they bring back would die here anyways. So I think that makes sense. I think they could have potentially saved the call for the Abyss next turn, but they must not have a water in hand right now. So we're just going to set the spy, pass back to them. They're going to set 1, set another, pass back to us. And let's see if they had a water. They had a Death Frog, I guess. So they might have drawn that Death Frog for a turn. But yeah. So either way, we should have lethal here. We can flip up the spy. And now we're going to just think about this a bit. We're going to banish Light and Dark, bring out the BLS. If they do have TT for this, then we've got Tribe to follow up and just kill them. But it looks like that will just be the end of the game there. So I think that game 1 really shows how we can, like, sort of outgrind our opponent a bit. For game 2, I'm trying to remember what I brought in. I think I brought in some Nox. I think, or maybe I just kept the deck the same, because Dust Shoot can deal with a hand that's clogged up with Tadpoles a bit well. Because, you know, with Tadpoles in rotation, that means that they're likely to have 2 cards in hand that they're not committing to field, and that means that they're more likely to have 4 cards in hand. So I think I actually might have kept the deck the same. But anyways, I go into that Mother Grizzly there. They bring out a Tadpole. That's fine by me. I just set the dust shoot and a ring pass back to them. And in standby, I will just dust shoot them. So let's see what they're working with here. They've got Mirror Force, Death Croaking, United We Stand, Sinister Serpent, and Abyss Soldier there. Of those, what do I want to actually send? I kind of want to send the Serpent because they can bring out Abyss Soldier, get over Breaker, but we got Ring for the Abyss Soldier. So it isn't the worst thing in the world. And I don't want them to get the recurable resource off of Serpent. So I think I honestly want them to send back Serpent there. And once I deal with the Abyss Soldier, then there'll be one less card that they can draw to get them out of a potential bad situation later. So I'm going to ring the Abyss Soldier there. And then they're just going to set one, pass back to us. So that has to be Mirror Force there most likely. And we're just going to play into it. We could summon out Jinzo here attacking a Tadpole, but I don't want them to get the free resources. So I'm actually going to bring out this Zaborg here. If they do pop this with Mirror Force, we've got BLS as a follow-up move. So I'm fine just hitting in. They will just take it, though, saving the Mirror Force for a better value. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Great Fury Spy. Now what we could do here is we could tribute over the Zaborg, and that is indeed what we're going to do. We're going to bring out Jinzo, banish the Light and Dark, bring out the BLS. The only thing this really loses to is if they've got Karibo in hand. But that doesn't even lose us the game here. It just sort of buys them a turn. And so that will be the end of the game. So I think that was a pretty good showing for the deck there in game one. And this second game went really quick, even though the first game was a bit of a grind. And that is a general trend. You know, most of these games go quick, but in a grindy situation, you generally can outgrind your opponent, which is part of why I love this deck. Okay, next up, we got Hoy, another frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive into the games. And we are going second. We lose rock, paper, scissors. But man, this would have been a great going first hand. As it is already a pretty good hand for going second too. Opponent's going to pop. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw another dust shoot. So we're feeling really good about that. We're just going to bring out the Sangan attack in for 1,000. I don't really feel the need to go for graceful yet. We've got a pretty good starting turn. The double dust shoot can send back anything that would get rid of the Sangan here. And we can tribute over it next turn for Jinzo. So you know, tributing over the same, we'll get a Serpent and then make our graceful play better. So I'm fine doing that. We go for dust shoot in the standby phase and see that they're on Brain Control Meta, Cyber Dragon, Goat, Power Bond, Ring, and Premature Burial. So there's only one monster to send back here, and that's the Sidra. So we'll save our other dust shoot for later. But this is a bit of an awkward spot for us because it seems like they're playing some form of Goat control. They're also playing Power Bond, which means that they can potentially get pretty explosive here later in the game. And they're playing a Brain Con and a Ring. So this is a bit of an awkward hand to navigate around here. We can't necessarily go for too many explosive plays because of the Ring. And so we're just going to have to shuffle that back. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw a Mystic Tomato here. And we're just going to bring out this Mystic Tomato attack in for 24. The reason I don't go for Jinzo is because they do have a Brain Con. I don't necessarily want them to Brain Con the Jinzo meta out for like a Ryu Senshi or something. Or a Dark Blade the Dragon Knight. So I'm going to save the Jinzo for as long as possible. Potentially until I draw like Book of Moon or something. But either way, I'm just going to save it. And it looks like their first set was a Scapegoat as well. So this tells us that they've got another Scapegoat in our future here. So we got to play around that a bit. They draw and we just go for a trap dust shoot here. I could have potentially saved the dust shoot because they drew into like a Cyber Dragon. Then like, you know, it didn't really do anything on this board. But, you know, if they drew a tribute monster, I don't want them to meta away a token, you know, bring out Thousand Eyes, suck up one of our monsters, and then tribute over that for something else. So I'm just going to do the dust shoot, see what they drew. And they drew a Snatch Deal there, so nothing to send back there. But we do know about the Snatch now, which makes committing a Jinzo even more scary here. So we're going to save that. They're going to go for a Thousand Eyes. They're going to suck up the Mystic Tomato. And then they're just going to hit over our Sangan here. We do get a search off this. And the search that we want is probably Sinister Serpent. Because we do have the Graceful here. And we can sort of wall up with Lady or Serpent. So we feel fine about that. We also do have a Snatch, so we can snatch their Restrict, tribute it out for a Jinzo if we want to. But we're going to go for the Graceful here. And that is a very, very interesting hand. That's very interesting. So this is a bit of a thinker. The Will play could come up later, especially if we set Warrior Lady here. And then we tribute it off for Jinzo. We can go for Will, bring out like, bring out a Stein. And then we can Stein for a Cyber End, dealing 4,000 here. It doesn't quite kill them, though, and we need to clear the Restrict before we do that. So we need to use Ring on the Restrict, dealing 1,400 to each player. And they do have Brain Con or Snatch, which would then kill us there. So what we're going to do is we're going to pitch the Serpent. We're going to pitch a Mirror Force here. I could have saved the Mirror Force for later, but either way, the next couple of turns, I'm going to commit a Jinzo here. And I don't necessarily want to commit that and just shut off my Mirror Force because, again, you know, they potentially have ways to take control over stuff and kill us here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to set the Warrior Lady, set the Ring, pass back to them. They are going to set one. They're going to attack into the Warrior Lady. We're going to flip that up and not banish. That way we do have potential Stein plays live next turn. We think about this in standby because we could go for Ring now, deal 14, then go for Cold Wave if we wanted to. But I'm trying to like put a lot of thought into this, but if we Cold Wave, we can't will, so it doesn't really make sense to do that. So I'm going to do a big think, but realistically it won't amount to anything. So, you know, I eventually just decide not to do it. And I forget to actually bring back the Serpent because I was in such deep thought. But you generally do want to bring back the Serpent. We will just ring the 1,000 Eyes Restrict, popping that. And if I brought out the Serpent, I could have summoned Serpent here and, you know, attacked over the token, then tried to attack in for 15. But then what they could have done is they could have brain conned the Warrior Lady, attacked into the Serpent, then banished both. So that wouldn't have necessarily been the best play. But I think it's ultimately fine to do what we did there. They go for Snatch on our Warrior Lady. That is perfectly fine. We get a Snatch in our hand as well. They're getting for 15. Then we gain 1,000. So we are at 5,700 now. The awkward thing here is if we want to go for a Stein play, we can't quite do it because we can pre-map back, you know, our Sangan, go for Jinzo, but we're actually at 4,900 if we go for that play. So ultimately, I am just going to decide to go for a big play here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go for pre-mat on the Sangan, see if that goes through. And that will indeed go through. Now, I'm going to activate Will because we can't really go for Stein, so I just want to use the Will to sort of develop our board state a bit more. So we go for Jinzo here. That shuts down their traps. We're going to bring out an Exiled Force to pop the Warrior Lady, and we're going to add a Magician of Faith to hand, just for follow-up later. So we're going to pop that Warrior Lady, and we're just going to try to attack in for 24. They do have another Scapegoat, and they will indeed fire that. So, you know, they're going to get 3 tokens here. Or they're going to get 4 tokens. I'm going to choose not to attack because I don't want to set up like OTK pushes that they might have. Like the big thing I'm scared of is if they, you know, go for pre-mat or not pre-mat, brain con or snatch on the Jinzo, and then they bring in another monster, get in for a ton of damage, and then we're kind of, you know, in a really bad spot. So I just leave them all 4 tokens there. Now, maybe this was a bit too conservative on my part because, you know, realistically, they'd have to have a monster that has 2,500 attack to actually, you know, kill us through that. But I'm just playing it very, very safe here. And I don't think that, you know, the 4th token will make or break the game. We bring out a breaker, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go for Cold Wave. This prevents them from taking control of our Jinzo here. We're going to do a bit of cleanup on the tokens, and also we're just going to get rid of one of their set cards. So we're going to get rid of their newest one. That's a Ring. I'm happy to get rid of that, although Ring is shut off by Jinzo. So maybe not the best pick. And we draw into Duo, which is pretty nice as well. We're going to attack over their tokens again. Instead of open up the opponent to Cyber Dragon, not Cyber-Stein us. I mean, they could also Cyber-Stein us, though, because they are at over 5,000. But we're just going to rip 2 cards out of hand. We rip the last Scapegoat, so that's very good knowing all those are gone. But we also hit a Power Bond, which is pretty nice. But that does mean that our opponent just probably doesn't have the setup for a Power Bond yet. We're just going to set this Magician of Faith pass back to our opponent. We get a lot of good spells engraved to potentially bring back. They're going to bring con our Jinzo here, and they're going to attack over our Breaker. So it seems like they don't really have a way to convert the Jinzo into something else. So we're very happy about that. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. And we draw Graveyard Spy, which is pretty good. We're going to add back the Serpent finally, and then we're going to flip up the Magician of Faith here. We're going to go for a Graceful Charity of our own here, and we're going to fire that, draw 3, and now with the Serpent in hand, we could pitch that, but we choose not to because we got Abyss Soldier here and the Serpent to pair with it. So I pitch the TT and the Spy instead. Spy's a bit dead to us, or not really dead, but it doesn't really do anything here, and we can potentially get in for like lethal, or not lethal, but 100 off lethal. But we're going to go for pot here, draw 2. And we're just going to decide to go for an Abyss Soldier attack in for a ton of damage, getting in for 4,500. So not quite lethal. But we do this play to insulate ourselves from like crackback plays. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go for Abyss Soldier, pitch the Serpent, bounce back the Magician of Faith so that way they can't kill us through weird setups. And then we're going to set this Snatch Shield as a bluff. We are very likely winning this game in many, many ways. Because with only 100 life points, they can't really do much. And yeah, they are just going to admit defeat there. So they can't really do anything. Because they've used up the Snatch, they've used up the Brain Con. So we are in a winning position there. So we're going to go into game 2. I think for game 2, because we are up against Go Control, I bring in the Wanghoos, I think. I bring in Wanghoos. I think I also bring in Lightning Vortex. And I forget whether I sided out the Dust Shoots. I don't quite remember. I think I sided out, like... I'm trying to remember what I said out. I should really take better notes about this. And I say that like every time I do this, but anyways, we're going to go for Cold Wave right now, attacking for 14 because we want to set up our Zaborg play and we don't necessarily want them to do anything that may seem crazy because we do have a pot in hand, but I feel like this is probably pretty good here. And they likely do have Cyber Dragon in hand. That's why they didn't commit anything. So what they're going to do here is they're going to bring out Cyber Dragon, attack over our Tomato. We can bring out like a Sangan here and potentially, tribute it off next turn for the Zaborg, pop their monster, get in for even more damage. So I feel pretty good about that. We are going to activate Pot of Greed first, just see what we draw, potentially change what we search off Sangan if we want to. And we draw a BLS and a Spy. That is really good news. This means if they clear our Zaborg, we do have the Light and Dark set up. We will bring out the Zaborg. We do need to search off the Sangan, but we forget to search off Sangan. So actually that is it's not just a misplay, that's an illegal play because we do have a mandatory search there. So very unfortunate we forgot about that. But hopefully it won't come up in this game. I think we're in a good enough spot to still win through most things. They're going to bring out this Twin-Head Thunder Dragon here. And we don't have the Mirror Force set because I valued going for the TT instead in case they had like heavy. And TT is generally better earlier before they have a board set up than Mirror Force, which is better later once they do have their board set up. So they're going to go attack over our Zaborg, at least attempt to. We've got the book for that, so we'll set down their monster. They're going to set one, set another, pass back to us. We draw Wangu, which is pretty good. We are just going to decide to hit in to their Twin Head. They do have Ring for our Zaborg here, so they will be able to deal 2,400 to each player here. We're just going to set the Spy, set the Mirror, pass back to them. I could have potentially brought out BLS, banished their new set here because I do have the Light and Dark and Grave, but I want to get more value off my TT here instead. So they're going to flip up the Twin Head. We are fine with that. We're going to save the TT for once they're actually threatening more stuff here. But they do hit over the Spy. We bring out another Spy here. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw a Breaker, which is pretty good. We're going to go for Breaker, break that last back row in case it's something that can stop our BLS play. Looks like it's just a Scapegoat. So we're going to banish a Light and a Dark, go for the BLS here, switch the Spy to attack. This should be lethal damage. We attack in over the Twin Head for 200. Attack into the set. To Magician Faith, so we'll be able to bring back Polymerization, but it won't help them here because we do have just lethal damage. And if they had Karibo, then we would have dropped them down to 400, which is still a really good spot to be, especially backed up by Mirror Force and TT. So I feel like we are, in a winning spot either way, and that will be the end of the game there. So it looks like they didn't really have anything here. They had King of the Swamp and a Sidra, but you can't make Cyber Twin, with the incorrect fusion materials, which King of the Swamp would be. So quite unfortunate there for them, but still very, very cool games. And, again, very quick games. Game 1 was a bit longer because of the goat control grind, but this game 2 was very, very quick. We just out-tempoed our opponent, really. And, that's how you win a lot of games in these formats. It's very, very quick, very, very explosive. And, yeah, that's how it goes. But that's going to do it for this game. Let's dive into the next one. Okay, we got a game against Dump Truck, another frequent guest on the channel. We're going to dive in. We do win the RPS there, so that's pretty good. And hopefully we'll be able to pull off at least one Stein OTK. I know it's Stein-Monarch, so, we should be able to do it at least once, but unfortunately we won't quite do it yet. We're going to go for the Duo first. I could have gone for Cold Wave instead, but I feel like Duo gets its most value now. We can also potentially hit a powerful monster. So I'm just going to go for it. And I hit a Dust Shoot, so I'm happy about that. We also hit a Book, so that's pretty good. We're going to set one pass back to our opponent there. They're going to set one pass back to us. And they go for Dust Shoot of their own, which is a bit unfortunate. They're going to send back that Serpent because they do know we have the Graceful in hand here. And then we can potentially go for Graceful. We could also just go for Cold Wave instead. We are going to choose to go for Cold Wave here instead, just in case they've got, other spells or traps in hand, potentially. And we can just get in for 3,600 here. So I'm fine just going for this now. If they don't have any monsters and stuff to block this off, then we can go for Charity next turn. But I feel like this is fine just going aggressive like that. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw a Heavy Storm as well, which is pretty good. And we draw 3, pitch a Sidra and a Tomato here. We tribute off for a Jinzo because it is lethal, and we'll get in for 4,800. So that's the end of that game. We didn't do a Stein play, but it does show, again, how explosive these decks can be. And so we'll just kill our opponent. Looks like they had Duo, Graceful, Premat, and the TT here. So that is very unfortunate. Looks like they saved the Duo for their Dust Shoot play, which I do think is smart. Unfortunately, just came back to bite them here. And yeah, so we will be going into game 2. And let's see how this one goes. Hopefully it will be a bit better for our opponent here. But again, these decks are very explosive and they can just easily kill you if you have a turn where you don't really do much. So our opponent is going to start. They're going to bring out a Pot of Greed here, draw 2. And then they're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Cold Wave here. And no Dust Shoot, so we're happy about that. We bring out a Tomato. We knock their set. And now we get in for 14. Oh, also, I want to mention I didn't really side anything here because, we don't know what they're playing. I think I sided out, maybe, I forget what I sided out, but I sided in another knock and another sider, I think. I don't think I sided out the dust shoots. I think the dust shoots are still pretty good, but they go for a breaker here. We had set the call to bring back the tomato and go for a Zaborg play next turn, so that's quite unfortunate. But it is what it is. They're going to attack in for 16 here, and they will indeed deal that. They're going to set one pass back to us. We draw a Cyber Dragon, which is really good. We go for Cold Wave here because we don't have any other spells and traps to really pair with it. We just go for Side Dread, attack over their breaker there. No need to tribute out the Zaborg yet. We can just save that for later. They're going to bring out a Sidra of their own, bring out a Sook to flip that down, and they're going to attack over the Sidra. So that's a bit unfortunate, and if we had brought out the Zaborg, it wouldn't have really made a difference here. So I think the play I did was still right, especially because we can go for Exiled here, pop the Sidra, which is still pretty good. We draw Serpent, which is nice, just to have that recurring resource here. Our opponent's going to go for Graceful Charity, draw 3, pitch 2, and they pitch another Sidra and a Sook. They're going to banish a Light in the Dark and a Light in the Dark, and they're going to go for exact lethal with a Chaos Orc and a BLS. So that'll be the end of this game too. And again, these decks can go very, very quick, and that's part of what makes the format so fun for people who enjoy that sort of thing. But you don't really get too many grind games. So we're going to go into game 3 here. I forget if I cited anything for this. I don't think I really did, because I think we've got a pretty good deck setup. We're going to go for pot here. We do draw the Cyber-Stein with Last Will, so we can't go for the Last Will Stein play on the following turn, because what we would normally do here is set Sangan, set like Mirror Force and Dust Shoot. Mirror Force if they attacked over our Sangan, summoned out Zaborg, or if they had set, then we could go for Zaborg. I think we could have gone for Dust Shoot Call instead with the Last Will, but I mean, either way, there isn't really a good lethal setup here for us through Stein. What we could have done is we could have gone for Dust Shoot Call, and then potentially, we call back the Stein and do stuff. Or we potentially go for Zaborg over Stein if they just set, and then we call back the Stein and just bring out a fusion monster. But I feel like that's all getting a bit too clever, and it also dies to too many things. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go Dust Shoot, Mirror Force, Dust Shoot back, whatever might be able to deal with this. We see that they've got a Ring, a Magician of Faith, a Cyber Dragon, and a Sook, along with Book of Moon and Limiter removal. So we want to send back the Cyber Dragon. Nothing else really gets over the Stein here, because they can't just normal summon Sook, because they'd have to flip itself down. So they're going to set one here either way, probably, unless they don't want to play into like Zaborg. But I think that sending back the Cyber Dragon is best. This also gets rid of their limit removal plays. They do still have Book and Ring, so that is good to know about, especially if we do want to go for a Stein OTK. It's a bit awkward now because we're paying 5,000, and that's a very, very scary spot to be in. So we're going to think about this. We're just going to bring out Sangan, flip up the Stein, not use Prio, and we're just going to attack in for 1,700. Just poke in. No need to go for Stein yet. If we had gone for Stein, we could have brought out, like, Cyber Twin. That wouldn't kill us here. But, they've got Book, they've got Ring. They could ring our monster down. They could set it with Book. So I don't really feel like that's a good play. We're just going to then go in on Call and TT here, because I feel like they set the Ring. And if they get rid of the Ring here, I'm honestly fine with that. And I don't think they can clear both of these unless they draw into another Cyber Dragon. But if they draw into another Cyber Dragon, they're not drawing into Heavy. So realistically, the only thing that stops us here is pot into Cyber Dragon plus Heavy, which I don't think they're going to do. So they just bring out the Sook. They try attacking into the Cyber-Stein. We go for the Mirror Force because we know about the Book, so we might as well force that out now. And that will indeed set down the Sook there. They're going to set another pass back to us. We flip up the Cyber-Stein and not use Prio. We're going to tribute off the Sangan, go for the Sook, and then we're going to search out an Exiled Force for just tricky spots to be in. And we're going to attack in for 3,100. Again, not going for the Stein because, they can just ring. Well, they can't quite ring to kill us here, but they can ring the Cyber Twin, and we don't have a way to really stop them from hitting over the Stein in a good way. We do have TT, but the awkward thing is if they've got like Cyber Dragon and they bring out Cyber Dragon, we'd have to TT that. But if we TT that, then they've got Magician of Faith to summon out after. So, I guess we got Call to then bring back another thing too. But it's just a bit of a scary spot to be in. So I choose not to do it. I don't think we need to do it right now. I think we're in a good enough spot to win the game here anyways. So they're just going to set one. We go for Last Will now because we're going for Exiled Force anyways. So we pop the Dekoichi there. And we're going to think about what to bring out. We bring out a Mystic Tomato. And that is fine by them. We switch the Stein to defense to play around Mirror Force to attack in for what is lethal damage. They've got Ring on the Tomato there. They'll deal 14 to each of us. We attack in for 24. They've got Book for that, though. So it looks like they drew another Book there. I could have potentially switched or kept the Stein attack to attack in and then go for call for game. But I think either way, we're still winning here, even though we don't kill this turn. We know they've got a Moth and an unknown back row, and we've got the call to bring back the Exile to pop that, and we don't even really need it to. We got Ring as well, so we can just flip up the Cyber, or not the Cyber, the Zaborg. We can bring out Cyber Dragon, attack in here, and either way, this wins through most things, because they do get back a spell here, but we attack in for 24. They've got Limiter, and that's just not going to do it. So, yeah, that's going to be the end of this game. Again, very, very explosive games. And I think this does show that sometimes you don't necessarily want to go for Stein. Stein is very, very powerful, but there are situations where you just want to hold it. And, we didn't use Stein there, but we were still able to set up a pretty controlling board presence. So Stein isn't the end-all be-all, although some decks can make it the end-all be-all. But I think decks that can sort of do the hybrid sort of, you can play Stein when it wants to, but, it doesn't have to, are the best. But this wasn't the last game that we got. Let's dive into the next one now. Okay, the last couple games we got here against M. Shobes, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. But we're going to be diving in, and we open a really good hand here, but they are going first. So, this hand might not amount to too much, but it looks like they're going to summon an Emissary, set 1, and pass back to us. Emissary is a very powerful resource engine. Basically, when it's sent from field to grave, then you get a normal monster. Your opponent also technically gets one, but most people aren't playing normal monsters. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go for the whale here, tribute off the Exile to pop the Emissary, and then just get out a Sangan from deck. We can't do the Stein play again because, Stein's in hand, so that's an argument for potentially playing more than one Stein. But also, I'm not sure if we would go for the Stein play into a unknown back row. So, we're just going to pass back to our opponent here. And then in standby phase, we've got this Dust Shoot to send things back. They've got a stacked hand, though. They've got Serpent, Gagago, Giant Red Sea Snake, Abyss Soldier, Mad Lobster, and Giant Red Sea Snake, along with a Ring of Destruction. So that is a lot of monsters. I could send back a Serpent just to prevent them from getting that resource loop online. But since they've got enough monsters to feel fine pitching anything for Abyss Soldier, I'm just going to actually send back that Abyss Soldier, because that is a very scary threat for us. So, we send that back. They've still got Ring and a ton of monsters here. They're going to bring out the first one, the Giant Red Sea Snake. Attack in to our Sangan. We'll take the 8. We get to search here. We're going to search out a Gravekeeper Spy, which none of the monsters in hand can get over. So I feel pretty good about this. They're going to pass back to us. We draw a Jinzo here. So that's pretty good too. We are thinking here, I think we're thinking about whether we want to go call, bring back Sangan, tribute out for Jinzo to attack over the Giant Red Sea Snake, or just set the Gravekeeper's Spy. I think ultimately I decided to set the Spy. Yeah, I should have set the Spy. I could go for the aggressive Sangan play, but they can't clear the Spy this turn, and that means that'll have a monster tribute for Jinzo, and I could save call for later, potentially bring back Jinzo as a defensive measure. So I feel fine doing this. They're going to attack in with the Giant Red Sea Snake, attacking into a Spy here. They'll take 2. We'll bring in another Spy from deck. And they're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a Cold Wave here, which is pretty good. We could go for that. But I don't really think we need to because we got Jinzo on field. We are just going to go for it anyways, just in case they draw a Spelled Out Jinzo. And I kind of want this to stick around, eating up into their normal monsters here. We're going to attack into that Giant Red Sea Snake, pass back to them. They are going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw another Gravekeeper Spy, so that's a bit dead at this point. But we're just going to attack into the Giant Red Sea Snake, get over that, deal 6. And then we're just going to set another Spy, pass back to our opponent. We don't really feel the need to switch the other Spy to attack and attack into their set. It's very likely it's in Serpent, but it might not be. So we don't really feel the need to do that. They're going to bring out a Mad Lobster, attack into our Spy, and take 3. We don't have any targets left. They're going to pass back to us. We draw a Tomato here, so we can just keep getting aggressive with the Tomato as well. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring out a Tomato. We're going to attack in to the Mad Lobster there, getting over that. Then we're going to attack into their set with the Spy. I don't think any of the normal monsters we saw in hand walled up against the Spy. And of course, since Serpent does not wall up either against the Spy, now we're going to get in for 14 on that Tomato there. Pass back to them. I feel like we're in a really good spot. They do have Graceful Charity, but they didn't add back the Serpent. Not that it would have really mattered here, because I think they're dead either way. They bring out a Gigo attack into the Spy here. That is fine. We'll take 650. They are going to pass back to us. And also, as a note, I could go for Stein at multiple points over the course of this game. I don't actually do that, and the reason why I'm not doing it and just holding the Stein is, 1, I think we're in a really good position. I don't think we need to risk going down to 1550, or not 1550, but a very low life total. And 2, if they've got Book of Moon plus Ring, then we just lose through a lot of different scenarios. So I don't want to play into that sort of eventuality, because they could book down the Jinzo, then go for Ring. And the fact that they're summoning out all these normal monsters in attack means that I have the read that they might have like a book, but they're just saving it for some reason. But I choose not to go for Stein this entire game. I definitely could have. I think we would have won if we had gone for Stein here anyways. But I think that playing it slow and steady like this is also not bad, and it does sort of pay off for us here anyways. So I think you got to know when to go for Stein, when not to. And we could have potentially gone for Stein here, sure, but I don't really think it matters either way. We're just going to set this Reaper pass back to them, and they're just going to, admit defeat. So they didn't really have anything to deal with the board we set up. Jinzo is a house. And again, I think that we didn't need to risk the Stein, and I'm glad we didn't, even though we would have won in hindsight. And we're going to go into game 2. This is a really good opening hand. Wow. This is a really, really good opening hand. We got Snatch plus Jinjo. We got Exiled Force plus Cyber Dragon. We got so much stuff here. They're going to set to summon out Emissary, pass back to us. They go for a Dust Shoot here and send back the Jinzo, which I do think is correct, as we do have the tools to bring that out this turn. But it's not really going to be the best for them. We bring out a Cyber Dragon. They go for TT here, so that will pop the entire field. They're going to add a Mad Lobster to hand. And we're just going to set this Spy, pass back to them. They know it's a Spy, but they've got to deal with the Spy. So they do deal with the Spy, going for an order to charge that will pop our Spy here. So that is unfortunate for us. But I do think that makes sense for them. And yeah, unfortunately for them, though, we got this pot. We also draw into another Spy. So we're just going to set the Spy, set a call, pass back to them. But that was actually a really clever play with the order, because then we could go for Cyber Dragon as well, which is pretty nice. So yeah, I think that made a lot of sense. But unfortunately, it will backfire now, because now they've got another Spy to deal with. So they could have potentially saved order for an aggressive monster instead, but I think that it did make sense to do it on our defensive one. And with that last will, that should be the end of the game. We go for last will here, bring out the Exile, pop the Gigo, go for a Cyber-Stein, and it will be the first Cyber-Stein OTK I'm showing off in this video. So we go for the Cyber Twin, switch these Spies to attack, and that's 2,400 plus 5,600, so that will indeed be the end of the game here. So even from 8,000, which they did have. And, I mean, even if we hadn't gone for this play, I think we would have still been in a very, very good spot. But this wasn't the only game that we got against M-Shobes, so let's dive into the next one now. Okay, we got our next game against M-Shobes. They're playing the same deck that's a straight-up replay. Or not replay, but rematch. So we're diving into this one as well, and it should be a good one, especially when we open like this. That is really good. All we need is a Tribute Monster, and we're doing pretty good. But they go for Terraforming for Umiruka, so it seems like they are playing that. That can get over our Spies. It can get over our Cyber Dragons as well. They're going to choose not to go for it now. That tells us that they probably do have a way to deal with if we had a Cyber Dragon to special summon here. So I'm not going to, play into that. I mean, I can't really play into that, but it is good to know about for the future. We set a Dust Shoot and a Mirror Force here. A classic play. We go for the Dust Shoot now. We didn't want to Duo first, because then they wouldn't have enough cards in hand for the Dust Shoot. So we go for the Dust Shoot now, and then we can save the Duo for later. Might have been a bit greedy on my part, but I think it's fine. We go for Dust Shoot, see that they've got a Mad Lobster and an Abyss Soldier, but they also have pots, so they'll be able to draw into more stuff. So that's kind of unfortunate for us. I think I want to get rid of the Abyss Soldier just so they can't bounce back anything here. They've got a Lobster, a pot, and a Call of the Haunted, along with Umiruka. So they're going to draw 2 off the pot. They bring out another Abyss Soldier, and they're going to bounce back our Spy there, pitching the Mad Lobster. They're going to go for an Umiruka, try and get in for 4,600 points of damage. We can't allow that to go through. We go for Mirror Force here, and they set 1 pass back to us. We draw Brain Control, which is pretty good. We're just going to set the Spy in the Duo, though, because, again, I have the read that they do have a way to stop a battle here. They've got Call of the Haunted, so they'll be able to bring back Abyss Soldier, which is quite unfortunate for us. They can, again, bounce back our stuff. And they're going to go for Dark Factory Mass Production. This gives them 2 more water monsters in hand to pitch off the Abyss Soldier. And that's sort of the power of this deck. You get a ton of resource engines going, and you use your Abyss Soldiers to their best effect. So a very, very cool deck idea here. And it's putting in work this game. They go for the Abyss Soldier, and they go for summoning a Giant Red Sea Snake here. So they're able to attack in for 4,600. We will not be able to do anything with that Duo, and that puts us in a very scary spot. We draw into a BLS, but we don't have any lights and darks engraved. So what we want to actually do here is we are going to go for the Brain Con on the Abyss Soldier. Try and crash it into the Giant Red Sea Snake. They likely do have a Saku or something, but either way, this is a 2-for-1 trade, so we're fine with it. And that is indeed the Saku, so the Saku's gone for later. And we're going to set this Tomato here, pass back to them. So they're going to attack into the Tomato. We are just going to bring out another Tomato. We don't have a Tribute Monster to bring out here. And if we do, we can go for Will to bring out whatever else we might want. They're just going to set 2 pass back to us, so playing around that Duo, unfortunately. They go for Ring on the Tomato in the standby phase, just to play around in case we have a monster tribute out here. And we're just going to set the Spy, set a call, pass back to our opponent here. They are going to bring out an Emissary of the Afterlife. That's a bit unfortunate for us. We will lose the one spy, but we get to bring out another spy, which will wall up the emissary, which is pretty good. We draw a Jinzo here, which is pretty nice. We go for the last will. We tribute over the Gravekeeper's spy, and then we're actually going to bring out this DD Ward Lady here to banish the emissary, prevent them from getting more resources here. Now, we lose to a lot of things here. If they've got like BrainCon or if they've got Snatch Steal, then we do just lose the game, but we lose the game to those anyways. So I don't really think it matters here. I could have potentially crashed the DD Warley into the Emissary of the Afterlife, gotten engraved, then brought up BLS and banished the Emissary here. But again, that still loses to BrainCon or Snatch Shield because they just take our BLS instead of our Jinzo. So I think it's fine just leaving the Jinzo on field. And they're just going to pass back to us. I feel very good about that. We just attack in for 2,400 here. And, drop them down to 4,100. So we do have a bit of a clock on them, even though if they draw monsters or ways to stop this, then we're in a bit of a tough spot. They just draw, pass back to us. We draw a Serpent. We're going to attack in for 24. They are on a 1-turn clock here. And in main 2, I actually just go for the Delinquent Duo here. It's a bit risky, but I figure, they don't really have anything that can cause us to lose by 100 here exactly. So I think it's fine just paying 1,000 of our life points as a resource, and we lose to the same things either way here. So I think this is fine. We pitch a Dust Shoot and a Duo of their own. So I'm not too upset about that. We set a Serpent and a Snatch just as a bluff. They bring out a Mad Lobster here, attack into our Serpent, and that'll just go to grave. They pass back to us. We draw a Dust Shoot. That's not really going to be that useful here, but we do have the Snatch Steal to take control of the Mad Lobster, and that should be the end of the game. So, wow, very, very intense game here. They brought us down to 100, but luckily that Jinzo was able to solo the board a bit here. So, very good stuff for the deck, even though it was down to the wire. Again, this deck can win without Stein, and, it's just showing how good it can be. So we go into game 2. Now that we know they're on Umirukas, we bring in some Mobiuses instead of some Zaborgs. We also bring in a Sidra here. So this is a pretty good start. They go for Duo, unfortunately, so they'll rip some cards out of hand. They rip a Call the Haunted, and we just pitch the Spy. My reasoning behind this is that we've got the Mobius set up online, and we've got a ton of other monsters in our deck if they've got like Dust Shoot to send back one of these. So I feel like it's not the worst thing in the world to just send the Spy and then save a Mirror Force, because Mirror Force can deal with their stuff where Spy can't really. But I think in hindsight, it might have been better just to keep the Spy, so that way if they do Dust Shoot us, then we do have a guaranteed monster setup for Mobius to come down. Although, again, if they've got Umiruka, they can just clear the spies anyways, so it doesn't really matter. And they do indeed have access to Umiruka here. They're just going to set one pass back to us. They do have the Dust Shoot there, so they'll be able to send back that side row, which is the correct choice. And we're in a bit of a tough spot. We go for Duo here just to rip 2 cards out of their hand. And we managed to hit an Umiruka, which is nice. So that means if we draw another spy, then they won't really be able to get over that. And they pitch a Sidra as well. We set a Mirror Force here. They go for a Giant Red Sea Snake. We think about whether to let this go through, and we do just take it. We want to save our Mirror Force for a better option, but realistically, they're not going to play into it. What I do want to do is, I've got 3 Sidras in the deck, and I don't want to make those dead. So I'm saving the Mirror Force just in case we draw Sidra here, but we draw Heavy instead, which is not the best. Unfortunately, there's some technical difficulties here. Luckily, we do manage to make it back into the game, and they are going to think about this a bit. And they're just going to attack in for 1,800. I do just Mirror Force this in case we draw Cyber-Stein off the top. We don't quite have lethal, but we can set up some really annoying situations for them to be in. Like we go for the Last Warrior from another planet, for instance. We draw a Ring, which is a bit unfortunate. We just set the Ring, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to bring out this Abyss Soldier. They're going to attack in for 18. We will just ring that because we're taking this damage either way. So get that out of the way. They set another pass back to us. We draw Last Will, which is not going to be helpful here. And potentially an argument for going for more than one Last Will in your deck is that you will brick on it more often. We just go for Heavy here, set the Last Will, pass back to our opponent. They go for a Giga attack in for 1850. And will we draw a monster here? We will not. So yeah, that's just going to be the end of the game. I mean, this deck had a lot of monsters in it, so I think we did brick a little bit here. But again, if I'd sent something else off the Duo, then maybe this would have been a bit of a more winnable game, but unfortunately we do lose that one. So we'll go into game 3. And I forget what we sided in here. I think we do keep the Mobiuses in because, again, against things like the Umuruka and the Sakuretsu armor, they're very good. So we do keep those in, I believe. And I forget what else we keep in here. But we go for Pot. I think we bring in a third Dust Shoot as well. So we're just going to set the Spy, set the Dust Shoot, set the Ring of Destruction, pass back to our opponent there. And we do go for the Dust Shoot, getting to see their hand right away. See Mad Lobster, Giga, Pot of Greed, Snatch, Call, and Duo here, which is a bit unfortunate for us. They will be able to draw 2. They also get to rip cards out of our hand here, but with this Ring, I feel pretty good about this situation. We just send back the Giga because it's got higher attack. So, might as well. And then they're going to go for pot here, draw 2. Then they're going to go for duo here, rip 2 out of our hand. And they're going to think about exactly what to send. They're going to roll for this. Generally, I say just, pick a card from the hand if it's random already. I mean, luckily, it doesn't take too long here. They pitch a Sangan. We'll just send the will. We don't have a way to trigger it right now. Besides ring, which we don't necessarily want to ring our own card and then go for a will play. So we're just going to pitch the will there. They attack into our set with the Emissary of the Afterlife. It is just a spy, so we'll get another spy here. And they're just going to pass back to us. I feel pretty good about that. We draw Warrior Lady, and actually this is lethal. So, yeah, I mean, this is unfortunate for them, but it will go through. We go for Snatch on their Emissary, summon out the DD Warrior Lady, and attack in for 31 plus 24, which is not quite lethal on its own, but then we get the ring to pop something. So that will just be the end of the game there. So, unfortunately for our opponent, we were able to get super aggressive here and win the game. And the call wouldn't have actually even helped them here because they wouldn't have had any monster in graveyard to bring back to stop this. So, yeah, just a really weird lethal line, but it was able to be set up, and it shows, again, how explosive this format can be. But, this wasn't the only replay that I got with M-Shobes. They actually played another deck that they've been working on as well, so let's dive into those as well. Okay, for our last set of replays here, we got some against M-Shobes, and they're playing a different deck as well. They've been cooking in this format, and there is a lot to cook. If you want to cook as well, definitely head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, link in the description down below. There's a great place to find games in this format as well as any other format that are featured on the channel. It's also where we'll be holding the Cyber format tournament later in the month. So look forward to that. I'll also be having some Cyber locals as well happening this weekend. But right now, we're just going to go for a big push. We're just going to go for Exiled Forest, bring out the Cyber-Stein, and then bring out a Cyber Twin Dragon, get in for a ton of damage that way. They search out a Divine Dragon Ragnarok, which tells me that they're on a King Dragoon deck, which is really good information for siding, because now we can bring in things like Lightning Vortex and things like that. So we're going to attack in for 5,600 with that twin. The reason why we go for this is because we got the ring to, pop our twin and kill them through that. However, I don't want to activate ring right away because if they get Book of Moon, that will stop it. So I'm just going to hold the ring for as long as I possibly can, just in case. And they use King of the Swamp to search up Polly. Then they go for Polly here, and they go for a Black Skull Dragon. Now, I feel like I have to ring at this point, because if they potentially treat out like a Jinzo to insulate their future plays, then I can't ring, and I think I lose the game, honestly. I might not, because I'm at 3,000, so Jinzo over Stein is only 1,700, but if they manage to bring out like another Black Skull Dragon, then I'm in a really bad spot. So I just go for the ring now. If they've got Book, they've got Book. But, if they do have Book, then that means that they can't, take control of the Brincon or Snatch Steal. So it's not the worst spot to be in. But looks like they do not have Book, so that will be the end of the game. So we go into the game 2. And, yeah, they didn't really have a way out of that, so it seems like they didn't have Book. And, yeah, if they don't have Book in that situation, they can't really stop that ring play. So that, again, shows the OTK, and it shows sometimes you got to go in a bit of a different direction for the OTK. You got to think about all the different options you have and find the best one. So our opponent just going to set one here, pass back to us. It is really good for us. We go for a Sidra. We tribute that off for a Zaborg, popping that, getting in for 24. Then we can go for a Delinquent Duo. Then we can go for a Trap Dust Shoot on the following turn. So this game is just really over. I mean, that's just rough. They draw here. We go for Dust Shoot in the standby. And we see they've got double Lord D and a Chaos Orc. We just get rid of the Chaos Orc because either way they'll have a Lord D to go for Dragon's Mirror if they want to. So I feel like, the extra Lord D won't make or break the difference. So we just send back that Sork, and then they're going to go for set monster pass. So they're not going to go for the Dragoon yet. Going for the Dragoon would be a bit greedy, I guess, on their part, because it can only crash with Zaborg. And actually, if they did do that, then we don't have a Dark Engrave, so we can't bring up BLS, but it does leave them exposed to a lot of other things. So we're going to draw into a TT, which is really nice. It, again, non-targeting removal is very nice against this deck. We're just going to bring out a Warrior Lady attacking the D. We're not going to banish here, and this might seem weird because it gives them a material engrave for the Dragon's Mirror, but they've got that either way with the other in hand. I'd rather have the DD Warrior Lady here as another out to their Dragons because, again, DD Warrior Lady is non-targeting removal. So they're just going to set one, fire the Pot of Greed. We know that is a Dragon's Mirror, and they're doing this to play around Dust Shoot, which I think is very smart. But yeah, we know that's a Dragon's Mirror, so that's good just to know one in their back row. And they're going to banish a Light and a Dark to go for Chaos Sork. So they've got the Sork online as well. They're going to banish the Zaborg here. We don't necessarily want to go for the TT yet, because next turn we can just crash our Warrior Lady into the Sork and banish them both that way. So that clears that. And we might as well save the TT for after they've gone for their Dragon's Mirror play if they want to do that this turn. So they are indeed going to go for the Dragon's Mirror play. bring out the King Dragoon there. And at this point, we are going to TT if they don't use Prio. But they are indeed going to use the Prio to bring out the Curse of Dragon, so now we'll TT on that. The reason why they do this is in case I have Bottomless Trap Hole. Bottomless Trap Hole will banish the King Dragoon, so they want to get a body out in field. And unfortunately, it does backfire for them because we do have the TT, but they're going to be able to bring in this Lord D, just poke in for 12. Not the best spot to be in, but we draw Call, so that's going to be really good for us. We can call the Haunted back something, potentially even a DD Warlay if they manage to bring out another King Dragoon. King Dragoon was properly summoned, so if they've got Revival, they can bring it back themselves if they want to. And they're going to go for 1200 again, poking in every turn. We draw a Abyss Soldier here, so we're just going to summon that because that can clear the Lord of D. We'll attack in for 600 there, poke over that, and we'll pass back to them. They set another pass back to us. We draw Zaborg, so that should wrap up the game. We will tribute off that Abyss Soldier for the Zaborg, go for Call here, and that should be all she wrote. And yeah, it looks like that will be the end of that game as well. We got one more game against this deck, so let's dive into that now. Okay, we got a last game against M-Shopes here. Again, they're playing the Dragon deck because, you know, this was a straight-up replay, or not replay, but rematch. I keep saying that. But this should be a pretty fun one. Hopefully we can see what the deck can do when it really pops off. And it looks like our opponent's going to go for a Poly turn 1, going for the King Dragoon there. So it looks like they've got the first turn King Dragoon out. They're going to special summon out a Red Eyes here. They're going to go for Dragon's Mare to bring out another King Dragoon. And then they're going to set one pass back to us. So they popped off here quite a bit. That's a bit rough for us, but I think we're ultimately okay because we do have this Mirror Force to pop their entire board. We just said Duo set Mirror Force because they've got heavy, Duo isn't really doing much for us here because they've just got, you know, they basically barfed out their whole hand onto the field, turn 1. So that means that Duo will do nothing, right? And so I want to have the Mirror Force as a 50-50 in case they do go for MST here. And they're going to go for a Magical Merchant to add a spell to hand and also get a ton of material in Grave for the Black Skull Dragons here. They're going to switch one Red Eyes to defense and attack in with the King Dragoon. We're going to go for Mirror Force there, wiping their entire field, and they'll pass back to us. So that means our Duo is live as well. We're going to go for the Duo here, pitch the Poly and the Red Eyes here that they drew for turn. And then we're going to set the Spy, pass back to them. They attack into our first set. It's a Reaper, so it doesn't die. And we draw a Zaborg, so that's really good for us. We can get really aggressive here. Flip up a Spy, bring out another Spy, tribute over that new Spy for the Zaborg, pop the Red Eyes there, and now we get in for a ton of damage. So that is quite unfortunate. They realized that they could have brought out the other Red Eyes in defense off Dragoon the turn they had it, but realistically that would not have won them the game either way because we would have been able to clear the board with Zaborg no matter what. So it would have been the better play to make for sure, but like realistically I think we were winning this game no matter what. So they attack over the Spy with the Sidra, and they pass back to us. We draw Tribe, which is really good. We can just get in for lethal this turn. We go for Tribe, pitching the Spy, and then attack in for 4,300, which should be more than lethal damage. So that will be the end of the game there. We're going into the game 2. Again, you know, we're bringing in the Lightning Vortexes, things like that, the non-targeting removal. They can deal with Dragoon, because Dragoon is really annoying to deal with if you don't have that non-targeting removal. So they're going to draw for turn. They are going to go for Pot of Greed here, and they're going to think about this a bit. They're going to go for Graceful Charity here, draw 3, pitch 2, and then they are going to, okay, they're pitching a Hex Shield and a Morphing Jar. I think that makes sense if they've got a handful of resources here. They're going to set one, pass back to us, and we draw a TT, which is pretty good for us. We're just going to set one, set another, and set the TT, pass back to them. If they've got heavy, we don't want to play into that with the TT. And again, you want to set TT first instead of Mirror Force because Mirror Force can deal with an established board, TT cannot. So they're going to draw in a standby phase. We're going to go for a Dust Shoot here, and they've got a pretty stacked hand, honestly. They've got double Dragon Mirror, they've got Giant Trunade, they've got Sidra, they've got Dark Hex Shield Fusion, King of the Swamp, and that Chaos Orc there. So check their grave, see that they've got a Dark and an Earth, but they probably have other ways to get lights in grave, so I think I do want to just send back the Stork. And the other ones all require a lot of resources to actually go through. So I feel fine just leaving them with those. They're going to go for a King of the Swamp here, adding back a Poly to hand. And then they're going to go for a Magical Merchant. So getting that deck thinning out of the way to get a more impactful Speller Trap. Now they add the third Dragon's Mirror to hand there. And they're going to tribute over that for a Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon will attack into our Mystic Tomato there. And we're going to bring out a Cyber-Stein because we could potentially go for lethal next turn, given that we know that they don't have any real ways to stop that, right? They're going to go for Dragon's Mirror here, banish 2, bring out a King Dragoon here. And that's fine. We're going to save our TT for the second Dragoon if they do want to go for that. Because if they just leave it at this, then I'm honestly fine just going Cyber-Stein into, like, potentially Cyber Twin or Master of Oz. Master of Oz probably instead, because what I can do is I can snatch the Cyber Dragon and go for that. And then plus Mystic Tomato, that's 21 plus 18 over the Dragoon. Oh no, actually Cyber Twin's better in that case. So yeah, I'd go for Cyber Twin off the Stein, snatch their Cyber Dragon, bring back the Tomato off pre-mats. I think that is lethal damage because that's 3,200 over the Dragoon, then 2,100 more, so it's 5,300, 6,000. No, it's not quite, so it's 7,400. So maybe I wouldn't do that then, because it's not guaranteed lethal, so it's not quite there. But anyway, they do go for the second Dragon's Mirror, and now that they're out of material to use for the third one, I do just go for TT here, wiping the entire board, and then they pass back to us. Now I can potentially go for a premature burial on the Cyber-Stein, getting really aggressive here, and that is indeed what I do. I just go for that, paying 5,000 and bringing out a Cyber Twin Dragon. This might be a bit aggressive here, but I do want to end the game quickly, given that I know that they've got another Dragon's Mirror. If they ever set that up, then that's going to be really annoying for me. I also know that they've got a True Nade here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the Mirror Force and the Death Shoot here. If they draw into like Snatch or BrainCon, I just lose the game because I can't deal with that. But if they draw into like a monster, they can deal with this. I can send it back. And so I feel fine about this. I think maybe I could have just played it a bit more conservatively, but this ends the game in 2 turns. And with that True Nade in hand, potentially it's stopping me from stopping them from getting out an aggressive push. I'm fine just going for it. So I go for True Nade here, or not True Nade, Death Shoot. And that's very good because they do have actually the material to make another Dragoon. So what I do is I just send back the Lord of D, and that will just be the end of the game here because they don't have the ways to actually make anything else, and they don't have the way to stop this play. So, yeah, we're just winning next turn anyways. They got a Hex Sealed Fusion, and that's just going to be the end of the game. So, very, very cool stuff, for both players here, I think. I really like this idea of the deck. I'm going to probably be making this sort of Dragon Turbo deck myself as well, and experimenting with Dragon's Mirror, because Dragon's Mirror is one of the coolest new cards from Cybernetic Revolution. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. And I hope that this video showed, first of all, how powerful Stein-Monarch can be, but also did show that there are people experimenting with the other sort of rogue or jank strategy in the format. And I think that there could be more things to discover there. So if you are interested in sort of diving into that as well, then definitely head on over to the Wiser from Zero Discord server. And we sort of discuss all these sort of jank ideas and rogue ideas there. And it's a great place to sort of refine these ideas down and hopefully build something that will be able to compete with the Stein Menace. But that'll be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed as always. If you do enjoy, then definitely subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 1,400 by the end of the month, and it would be really even cool if we could get to 1,500. So if you're not already subscribed, definitely subscribe and help us reach that goal. It would really mean a lot. And if you want to support me directly, I do also have a Patreon link in the description down below. So big shout outs to Rinswin, GMYFS, Dump Truck, Tyler Compton, Brent Donker, and Pork Chop Coon. It really means a lot that you all support me in this way and encourage me to make more videos like this. Let me know what you think of this deck and the format down in the comments below. I look forward to talking with you as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.